This video is part 2 of creation. Enjoy. Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth, across the dome of the sky. Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind. You had oceans, you had seas, you had lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, puddles. But now it's time to fill it with life. This is where God made all the animals, yes, including the dinosaurs. Also, the chicken came before the egg.
Look at all those chickens.
There were creatures created like Behemoth that you find in the book of Job. You also have everyone's favorite, Leviathan. But you see, when it comes to Behemoth or Leviathan, we don't know if these are actual big, terrible beasts, or like for Behemoth it was hippopotamus. Some people say that it's a hippopotamus they're describing, or Leviathan is what, an alligator or crocodile. All right, because we could see how those verses would make sense with those animals too. Or what if they aren't that? What if they are something monstrous, something bigger? Right? We don't know. We don't. But perhaps there is some truth to the tales that we hear of old about giant sea monsters or dragons. I mean, if humanity lived longer, why couldn't animals as well? Right? Reptiles never stop growing, so imagine a reptile living 900 years. It'd be huge. It'd almost be a dinosaur. Some of these things remain a mystery even till today. See, when it comes to Earth, dry land, 5% of the Earth is unexplored. Just 5%. But you know what percent of underwater is unexplored? at least 80%. There's still so much about the ocean and the life underwater that we don't know. Here is another mystery. In 1496, a bishop was buried in Carlisle Cathedral in northern England. What makes this fascinating is what was found in the tomb. It is a picture of what looks like two long necks or sauropods. How did people living about 500 years ago know what they look like? Is it possible that dinosaurs existed in Europe up until 500 years ago? Or what about this? This was found in a temple in Laos. It's over 500 years ago, but still, what is that? Looks like a Stegosaurus. Now that all the animals have been created, God is about to make something special, something that He has never done before. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. That we know of, God has not made any other beings in His image, only humanity. But something stood out to me in a way that seemed weird. In Genesis 1:27 it says, "So God created humans in His image. In the image of God He created them. Male and female He created them." See, it keeps repeating the same phrase, created them, created them. It says it 3 times in the same verse. And I thought, well, that was just a weird way of speaking. Well, it is a way of speaking. In fact, this is what's called Hebrew parallelism or poetry. You see, when it comes to the story of when God made humanity, it's written in poetry, the language of love. Why do you think that it is using poetry to describe this part right here? And this is used in many times in the Bible, but we see it very clearly here. So why? In Genesis 2:27 it says, "He formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." This is important for a few reasons. Not just because God actually took the dust, the dirt from the ground and formed a human, but for other reasons too. God actually described here what makes a person a living being. He took the dust of the ground, formed it, made a body, and then breathed life into it. A body plus breath equals life. Because if you have a body and no breath, then it's not living. And if you have no body and just breath, then it's just air and it's still nothing. You have to have both of those things together to make a living being, or to make a soul, a body and breath. Now, I know He did make Eve a little different. He caused Adam to go into a deep sleep and took a rib out and made woman out of it. So there's still a special quality to how God made Adam and Eve, unlike anything else. It's very descriptive on how he makes the two of them. You know, with the other stuff, it's just let there be light, let there be water, let there be this. But there seems to be a hands-on approach when it comes to making humanity. Now, once they were created, they were given the task to go out and name all the animals, have dominion over everything. The whole planet was theirs. That's a lot of work for just the two of them. Think about how much work you have to do in your own home, and then throw your job on top of that, and then anything else that you want to do. Now imagine you're in charge of keeping the whole earth in order. That's a lot. It's a lot of work. But you see, God did not intend for Adam and Eve to work all 7 days of the week. In Genesis chapter 2, we see that God has completed all his work. Remember, biblically speaking, at sunset is when the new day begins. So here it is now. The sun is about to set on Friday, or the 6th day. And the work of God's creation is about to come to an end. And as soon as the sun set, something incredible happened. God began to rest. No, not that type of rest. I mean the type of rest where you cease from working, right? The Hebrew word here isn't to go to sleep. It's just to stop working, to cease working, put an end to your labors. Some interesting details to be made aware of here. Remember, Sunset Friday is when the 7th day began, when Sabbath began. And in Mark 2:27, it says that the Sabbath was made for man. It was made so that mankind could find rest. Perhaps some might say, well, God didn't tell Adam and Eve to keep the Sabbath. Well, he couldn't on that first Sabbath because it wasn't even Sabbath yet. Every hour that passed and that he rested, it was becoming holy. In fact, the Sabbath wasn't even made hallowed or completed until the Sabbath was over. So for the whole 24 hours of Saturday, of the 7th day of the Sabbath, Adam and Eve were able to observe what God did. Remember, they weren't there for creation. They didn't see any of the earth be formed. They had to accept it by faith, but for the Sabbath, they were able to witness it in person. They were able to see God resting. You see, this was a good lesson for them because now they could do what God did. And he was showing them exactly what to do. See, God knew that humans would have limits, and so he created a time of rest. See, Jesus says that, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." It's such a beautiful thing, because even Jesus says, "I'm the Lord of the Sabbath." And by coming to Christ is where we find rest. So why is creation important? Because it means that God has made a home for us. In a home, we find all the things that matter to us. We find family. We find comfort because we can control our environment. And we can be ourselves. While we don't have all the answers to creation, and we probably never will until we go to heaven and get to ask God these questions, that does not stop us from still serving God. And that does not stop us from admiring the beautiful creation that he made. I want to thank you for joining me on this adventure as we go through creation. Thank you, and God bless.